Okay, guys, follow me here. We're breaking down the story of how a sick rat killed about half of Europe's population in the 14th century. We've all thought it before. There's too many people on this planet. We need another pandemic. Let's talk about the one that took about 25, 50 million people's lives, maybe even more, in a journey through Europe, North Africa, and the Near East that lasted between 1346 and 1353. It was called the Plague, but also the Black Death, the Pestilence, the Great Mortality. Well, I guess it's true what they say. Dear child has many names. To thank for the disease, we have the bacterium Yersinia Pestis. Fleas infected with the bacterium would travel on rodents, such as rats, for sometimes long distances, to later infect humans through bites. This was easy due to the terrible lack of hygiene, apparently to the degree that the only law enforced upon people was to yell, "Look out below!" 3 times before dumping waste through windows onto streets. In France and Italy, there were streets named after human waste. Animate streets Rue Merdeux, Rue Merdoulet, Rue du Pipi. These filthy living standards, accompanied with the closed living quarters in urban areas, facilitated for the fleas to move rapidly from host to host. Getting bit by one of these, and, well, let's just say you won't be taking any pictures of yourself anytime soon. The first signs of the bubonic plague were fever and chills, but if you were really lucky, as the vast majority was, you'd get swollen lymph nodes, or buboes, as they're called. These babies were not to be popped like a pimple. They were egg-sized boils erupting in your armpit, groin, or neck. They pulse with excruciating pain and are filled with pus that reeks of decay. In the most severe cases, the skin around the buboes blackens, a horrifying testament to the disease's lethal potential. If left untreated, it had a 30 to 60% fatality rate. As the disease progressed, some victims experienced difficulty breathing and coughed up blood, signs of the pneumonic plague, which was spread through inhalation by airborne droplets and had a mortality rate of 90–95%. Imagine something tickling your throat and having to cough during this time. Oh well, others suffered from abdominal pain and bleeding, which were symptoms of the septicemic plague, the worst kind and the rarest, with a mortality rate near 100%. I know what you're thinking. With the disease affecting so many, they must have done everything they could to stop it. And they did. Meet the plague doctors, dressed in a head-to-toe leather ensemble complete with a beak-like mask filled with sweet-smelling herbs to combat the bad air they thought caused it. But just in case, they also brought a leech to suck out all the bad blood. If you couldn't afford this treatment, they'd still help you by just cutting open the skin with a knife and collecting the bad blood in a cup. Not as nice, but hey, at least you'd save a few bucks. Other remedies performed involved the use of animals. A live chicken, devoid of feathers on its back and bottom, was secured to the patient's inflamed areas. If the chicken fell sick, it was believed to be extracting the illness. The chicken was then detached, cleansed, and reattached. This cycle continued until either the chicken or the patient died. Of course, wealthier people would use snakes instead. Then there were those who believed the plague to be a punishment from God, which was fine, but what they did was not. They were called the Flagellants and practiced self-punishment by whipping themselves in public processions through towns, believing that their pain could cleanse their sins. The Christian authorities did try to stop flagellation at times, but by then it had gained too many followers. Trying to stop it would be like trying to get all chickens back in the cage after you let them out. Needless to say, all mentioned methods had no effect on stopping the spread except for one: social distancing. The port city of Ragusa in modern-day Croatia was the first city to initiate a 30-day isolation period on newly arriving ships. As they saw the effectiveness, it was later extended under the law of quarantino, meaning 40 days, which gives it the English word quarantine, a word we've all come to know and just love. Of course, today we know that the real cause of the plague was due to a bacterium. Genetic analysis suggests that Yersinia pestis evolved in the Tian Shan Mountains on the border between Kyrgyzstan and China around 2,600 years ago. The immediate territorial origins of the Black Death are unclear, with evidence pointing towards Central Asia, China, the Middle East, and even Europe. Whatever the case, it was reportedly first gifted to Europe during the siege of the Genoese trading port of Kaffa by the army of Mongol ruler Gianni Beg in 1346. This guy was something else. He was the definition of a sore loser. As his infected soldiers dies from the disease, Janibeg, realizing his loss, throws their plague-infested bodies into the town to infect his enemies, perhaps the first case of biological warfare. In 1347, from Kaffa, Genoese ships carry the epidemic westward to Mediterranean ports via Sicily, Constantinople, and the Italian peninsula. Unfortunately, by the time it was recognized that the ships were the carriers of the epidemic, it was already too late. In 1348, the plague reaches North Africa, mainland Italy, Spain, England, and France. It spreads to Bristol, England in August, and then moves rapidly throughout the southwest counties of England. London was most strongly hit between February and May in 1349. The same year, it reached Austria, Hungary, Switzerland, Germany, and the Low Countries. In 1350, it continues through the north of England and also hits Scotland, Scandinavia, and the Baltic countries. It continues to swallow lives in 1351 until it finally burps in 1353 at around 25 to 50 million people. Phew, what a relief. Well, that's all for today. I hope you learned something new. Before you leave, make sure you've liked and subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video.